And today we're going to talk about that circle thing.
That circle thing.
Right.
Yeah, so actually we did not even wait for the questions to come
Whatever,
in.
episode
because
3.
Yeah, well, because
you have questions.
I have so many questions.
Exactly.
So Monday we're doing the squat, and as we said in the last podcast, I get a bit like into stuff. Like I start watching more squat videos and more deadlift videos, and I'm starting to learn, and I look a lot at what you're doing and the videos and everything. And then I'm doing the movement, and I start to find the internal torque and the external torque a bit more every time, and then it's sort of connected. I got very, very excited. But I went down and up towards the outside, and I was like, whoa.
So you went down in external torque, but then you came back up in internal torque.
Yeah, but I also went down in internal torque, and then went up in external torque.
Yeah, depending on the movement.
Yeah.
Right, so today you were doing the hinge, you were down in external torque, and then back up in internal torque.
Yeah, so then I was like, whoa, it feels like a circle. And then I did the online seminar, and where you talked about this and everything, and I was like, is this what he means? And
so from now on, it will be cyclical and acyclical work will be referred to as the circle thing.
Well, to me,
so
I feel like it's more the circle of life, because I look at the world differently now. I look at all the bench is different, the squat is different, the deadlift is different. I'm shocked, and I was like, wow. He's really that good, huh? That's so fucking annoying.
There's that too. Right, so what was interesting? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, to me, sorry, I'm not going to let
go
you
ahead.
speak. And this episode is going to be just about that, because I have so many questions, and I've been holding a lot of them in for this. So, yeah. Okay, so then... How did you came up with this, and how did you figure it out? That's my first question. And second of all, everything feels lighter now, because I did we did deadlift this morning, and I did 120 kilos, and I just repped it. It was super easy. I did 130, didn't go that well because my core is just not strong enough yet.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's just heavy, but I did the stiff leg with 100, which did not feel like 100 at all.
Right, and on the 100 kilos, you were letting yourself go down.
Yeah.
And then, but on the way up, you were really focusing on internal torque,
yeah.
right? And then that allowed you to find a rhythm.
Yeah,
and that is the same.
Yeah, and the rhythm is what I like a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's the same over and over and over and over again, and that makes me very happy. Because then I go from the deadlift, and I'm doing the stuff, and it doesn't matter if it's 100 kilo, 120 kilos, or 130 kilo, I just do exactly the same thing. So with 130 kilo, I was not even nervous, because I know what I was supposed to do.
You know what's mind-blowing, actually, that you haven't realized yet? It's the same for sprinting.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, that circle thing.
Because it truly feels like a circle. That's the funny thing. Like, I was doing it with the squat, and then it was like a circle, and then I'm like,
it's almost like it's a pattern.
Yeah,
it's been this for like the last 3 days, so it's awesome.
No, but like, then
she's explaining to me the whole thing. You don't understand. So you go down, and then you go up, and then you go down, and then you go up. There's a circle there. There's like a circle of life pattern type of thing.
Yeah, I think the circle of life is super fitting, but because things go down and out and in and out.
Happy you are after that training. Isn't that funny? Right. So after, she was super giddy after the training, and all like zen and within the movement and everything. Isn't that funny? That work?
Yeah. It's super funny. But then, sorry, I need to tell a little bit more. Then on squat day, I noticed it. And then I'm doing bench, which I'm not that good at the bench yet. And I'm like, whoa, it's all the same. It's all the same. And I was like, what? Everything makes sense now. So, and then we had a rest day, and then I did with the deadlift today, and I'm like, whoa, it's the same again. So now I had 3 days to think it through, and now I have the proof. It's all the same.
It's all the same.
And it's so cool. So, yeah, I have a lot of questions.
Bring it on.
Did you have the same experience as me, that you were like, whoa, it's a circle?
Oh, totally.
And how did you go? Like, did you find internal torque, external torque first, and then it came sort of together?
Yeah,
and how
it
much?
was when I got it, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So first it was internal torque, external torque. It was the really I was looking at the squat pattern, like, and then why is a clock off when he does a strict press or a power clean looking so different than a Usain Bolt when he runs? And then I started to figure out the internal torque, external torque, that the energy, let's not go there. The tension was either going toward the center of the body or away from it. That everything seemed to explode away from that center or go toward that center. So if you look at sprinting, you're cranking this way, you're going toward the center. Even when you run, you step and then you bring everything toward you. Then you go out, then you bring everything toward you, then you go out and everything toward you, which is the same movement as you'll see in swimming. Which means, so you end up with a movement that is either away from the center of the body or toward. Which it struck me too is when I was watching the drawing of the Vitruvian Man, by Leonardo da Vinci, that the mathematical center, like geometry-wise, of the body is 3 inches below the belly button. It's called the navel, like right below the navel.
We call it the same in Dutch.
Oh,
Navel.
Yeah, must be a Dutch word. That's why. It's like bon appétit. It's a Dutch word too, or baguette, stuff like that. It's all Dutch. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. It's a long-standing war between Dutch words and French words. Anyway,
we were there first.
There you go. It's a lingua franca. Anyway, let's back at it. And so there seemed to be something about that center of the body. And so, long story short, because there's a lot of stuff that started to go into it that seemed to show that there was only 2 patterns, either away from the center or toward the center. So that was the first step. And then the logical conclusion after that was to stop looking at it in such a picture type, but they start to put it into a movie, which means you had to go either out or in. So out or in, the logical conclusion that there was a flow to it, a pattern that would either go this way or a pattern that either would go that way. And then I started to experiment with stuff, like for example, the squat, and I realized that there was a specific pattern that if I did a certain way, seemed to give me a very good sense of flow. Like, that giddy feeling, like all happy, whereas if I were to do the other way, it would be more like, not necessarily anger, but that energy coming out, that explosion, or the other one would be more like a centered feeling of flow state. And they seem to obey a specific pattern. So I started to play with that pattern, and then when he hit me like how true this was, I was like, all right, but then it has to be true for everything. Then it can't just be true for 2 movements, it has to be everything. And I started to look at all movement, and I saw the same pattern in every movement, like the butterfly pull-up is a cyclical thing. And so what I noticed the most is how calm and peaceful people are in that cyclical pattern. I know, right?
No, I'm just enjoying.
Yeah. And then how explosive and more like, toward the outside people are in that acyclical pattern. And then the nervous system get in the middle of it. Now, to answer your question, did I figure it out? Yes and no. I am the first person that I heard talk about internal torque versus external torque. Am I the only one? No, there's no way. There's no way. I'm the first one in today's world, I think, that I read about that went into that route. That does not mean I'm the first one to figure it out. And I seriously doubt I'm the only one. I know I'm not. And if you look, someone like William Reich talked about the oscillation of a worm as a primal pattern. Right, so there's a lot, and he does external torque, internal torque, right? So it's the same idea. William Reich talked about it. So that's why when I saw him talking about this, I was like, I know that pattern. That's the cyclical versus acyclical, right? It goes up, right? So it's the same pattern. He talked about it as a primal pattern. I think I took his work a little bit further because he was not a movement type of guy. I was about to say just, that's not true. He was a psychotherapist and a genius in his own right. But there's a pattern there that seems to be repeated almost in anything.
So
Tai Chi talked about it, Tao talks about it. Like this is an ingrained pattern which goes a lot deeper than just doing squats and deadlift, I believe.
So from a niche point of view, how do you Reich point of view,
Reich is from Vienna, so I don't. You would know. That's German.
Reich?
Yeah.
Reich? I
Reich.
don't know. I don't know.
CH at the end. Reich.
CH?
Yeah.
Reich?
It sounds more like that than the way I say
anyway,
it. Yeah.
From his point of view, how would you think that it affects the more mental?
Right, so that was his whole thing, is that for him, the way to fix, like, so in character analysis, his book, he talks about helping with schizophrenia, not curing, but helping through specific movement. That's why he thought the orgasm was the most important thing there was, because of that convulsion.
I disagree.
Yeah, exactly. But like that shaking,
yeah,
like, you know, like the shaking like this is actually something he worked on. Like would make people, so it's William Reich, I can't explain it in 10 minutes, but he had an idea where he basically used the chakra points where the tension is being kept. And he would use those convulsions type of movement, very specific, in order to release the tension in that area. And so for him, those convulsions that mimicking that primal pattern was the way to free tension from the what he call a vegetative system, which is a nervous system, really. That they call it that back then. So the idea was that
that soothing feeling that it just
that
when it released
that the trauma is not kept in the mind, it's kept in the body.
Yeah.
There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's a little bit the same idea. He's the one really who opened the door to that. 1920 Vienna, so it's 100 years ago. He opened the door like there was a Freud who came up with the idea that all trauma is kept in the head. Emotions, trauma, and he came and he go, no, there's a physical component to trauma that is kept literally in the positioning of the body. But when more, he actually offered cancer as also a trauma being kept in the body. He went very, very far into that idea. And for him, the physical release through certain convulsion, for example, orgasm, making you do the same movement, would release the tension from specific area where it was being kept. And it was being kept in the areas that were going with the chakra points. So he used the Chinese idea with that, the Meridian Cycle. So there's an entire idea there that he talked about first. It happens at the chakra points. If you look here, there, and there are all the points where internal torque and external torque meet.
So the release would be from that, or he made them release that from that.
No, he didn't. I did. That part is mine. So that's the thing. Is his idea where he had the chakra points. What I realized after a while is that the chakra points that he's talking about, and then those points of tension, are the connection point of internal torque and external torque. And so that the flow would have to go through that, and that's why the tension is being kept there, because one chain or the other is weak. That was my conclusion to his work.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes really deep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it turns out.
Yeah, you're kind of smart though.
So yeah, there was a very deep idea on the cyclical, acyclical.
Very, very deep idea. So, just from a pure movement perspective, because if we go into this... It is a stupid
podcast. Exactly.
Yeah, but also when we go into this, it gets very spiritual, and I think I think a lot of people also will be like, that's too deep in that spiritual thing, but also from just...
It's not spiritual at all, but people mistake it for that. Yeah, I know, like,
right?
This is why I don't like to go into all this.
Yeah, I understand
because
that.
you go into patterns that, unfortunately, got hijacked by spirituality and religion, which annoys the living shit out of me, because this has nothing to do with that. There is a physiological component that we are just... This is a war between science and religion that's been going on forever. And science is a lot closer to religion than they're willing to admit. But their way of being close to religion is either to go there or to be so anti-religious that they become religious.
Yeah.
It's like a war between Christianity and Islam. It's like, you're wrong. No, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And so they're so anti-religious, they're religious in their approach. So you cannot go at simple patterns, going like there is something there that, let's say, like a Tao would describe, because then it's a religion. Tao is a philosophy. But you either start to talk about those patterns, or you are movement-based and practical-based. You cannot be both, which I disagree with, as you can imagine, completely. But that's why I don't go into all that stuff too much. I have some videos out there, and it always ends up being, I lose people.
I can imagine that, and I personally really like the whole deeper thought about everything.
Because you experienced it.
But I think that a lot of people will look at it don't take it as seriously as
exactly.
you should take it, because it's really cool. Or I find it
that's
very
why.
cool.
But that's because you experience it. So let's go back to movement, because that's at the end.
I think it's also depending on what type of person you are.
But plus at the end, who cares why?
Yeah.
It matters to me, but at the end, really, who cares why? Does it work? And what does it do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what is interesting to us here is that the fact that when you did the deadlift, the stiff leg deadlift with 100 kilos, each rep was the same. You found a rhythm. The weight was lighter.
Yeah.
That's what matters. Is that it's allowing you to find a pattern of movement, right? So that means that whenever you don't like a movement, you're not finding a pure pattern. Wherever you find a good pattern, like internal torque, external torque, so cyclical or acyclical, you find into a rhythm your body fully understands, and the whole system comes together, and therefore the lift is lighter, feels lighter, it's simpler to do, because you find almost like a dancing pattern.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look, dancing is the same, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be the same. So they're all the same patterns. Right, it's the same. So if you can understand that pattern, then that means that you can adapt it to any movement. Any movement becomes simpler to do. If it's simpler to do, you think less, you become better at it.
Yeah, because that I find very interesting. Once you have that rhythm, I approached everything the same. It was no necessarily mental stress to it,
right.
Because you go like, oh, I do exactly what I just did, and I'm gonna do exactly that again, and then
right. So
there's a confidence in it.
Right.
Which I find very interesting.
Right, this is the problem we're going to run into the Stupid podcast is anytime you ask me how did I come up with it, we're going to end up in those places where I'm going to go into super deep stuff. No, but we don't have to go there. It's just I had to give at least some feedback. But let's keep it as practical as we can in this podcast so that we talk about so when do we apply cyclical versus acyclical? Yeah. How come on the squat you were going external torque on the way up? And how come you were doing stiff leg with internal torque?
Yeah.
So the reason stiff leg you did internal torque is because if you look, the stiff leg is a hinge pattern. You're not jumping up, you're just bending at the hip. Right, a hinge is like a sprint. It's an internal torque pattern, which means you bring the tension toward the center of the body.
Yeah.
Right, so if you were to use that tension exactly on the sprint, I bet you like we do it right now, you run better.
I'm gonna try it.
You're gonna try it, right?
I'm gonna try it.
Whereas the squat,
today, probably.
Whereas the squat, you're here, and then once you break parallel, when you come up, you're going away from the center of the body. So very explosive, like a jump.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, yeah. Okay.
But do you want to jump when you sprint? And if you look, once you pop your hammy, that's what you end up doing. You end up arching, going up with your sprint instead of forward because you could not hinge anymore. You started squatting up, pressing your legs up. Because you went to external torque, because you could not have the internal torque anymore because you pop your hammy doing a hinge. So the way to fix the hammy is internal torque, which is, if you remember, what I was making you do, a hinge movement at the beginning. So now squatting makes you stronger, but it's not necessarily transferable to your sprinting like the stiff leg will be. But the stiff leg, now you understand going out and in and out and in with the proper tension, you're going to see that that's actually
the movement
how you sprint.
So would you think then for athletes that do a sport outside of lifting that you would have to do depending on how they go out, in, or in, out?
Exactly.
They do like a strength program completely based on that.
Right.
So they constantly do the same movement, or would it also be good to do the movement the other way around?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. You need to do also the other way around because the body lacks balance. You cannot unbalance the body completely. And there are other problems with the nervous system. If you were to do only one movement, you'll crash because you'll get, for example, if you were to do only external torque work, you're gonna get yourself into an anxious state because you're always in external torque.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar? Right. So it pushes the anger, the sympathetic
So you go always your energy towards the outside, not towards the inside. Okay.
And then you end up pushing the ground instead of pushing yourself. Yeah, you end up moving the ground instead of moving yourself, which is what you do on the squat. If you were to go all internal torque, eventually you will be so internal that you'll crash. You'll give yourself a bit of a bout of depression. So there's danger there. From a physical perspective, you would be imbalancing the internal torque, which is the base, versus the external torque, which is the explosion. There is a need for balance between the two. By the way, your jump off the blocks would suck, so we still need both.
Yeah.
Where are you the best at? Off the blocks, because it's external torque, so you still need that anyway. But there is a balance between external to internal. That balance matters depending on the individual and the sport they're doing. So there's always going to be a balance to find. Within that arch, there are leeway. There's a leeway based on the person, based on the sport. So we need to lean one way.
Based on the imbalances too, right?
Imbalances too, and that's the thing too, is when they get hurt, which chain got hurt, internal torque or external torque. Based on that, I'll know how to rebuild. Did you pop the external torque because you did not have enough capacity to hold the weight together? So was that an internal torque problem, and then based on that, I'll tell me which chain was weak and what do I need to rebuild.
So when you get hurt in then one torque, let me see, call it that, is it then possible that multiple aspects of that torque get injured with it, even though you don't hurt them?
Yes, so you'll start with one and then the whole thing will go. That's what you'll find. Let me make sure. Yeah, because I need to reset soon.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay. Yes, that's a very good question. What happens when this is what happens when you get hurt. And usually none of us stop. If you're someone who's driven, you get hurt the first time, you won't stop. You'll stop when you're really not capable of doing anything anymore. So that means that, let's say you hurt the right hammy. You keep on running. So in a sprint, you need the hammy, so it's different. But if I do another sport, maybe the right hammy starts to hurt, so I compensate a different way. And then somewhere else in the chain, we'll have to take the chance. So I might hurt that aspect because of the first injury that I did not want to deal with. So you'll see that a lot. Or you can go the other way, which is what you did, which means you hurt the internal torque chain on the right. And so how do you keep on running? You go external torque on the right. The problem with that is that now you have one leg, the left, that goes internal torque, the right that goes external torque. So the whole thing starts shifting. So that means that puts a tremendous pressure on your knee because nothing is aligned anymore. Yeah. Your foot still has to be straight and bringing in, while your knee wants to turn because you're in external torque. So you create external rotation of the femur while the tibia stays. So the pressure on the knee is tremendous. That's why you had knee pain. So
could it also have gone to the lower back?
Of course it does.
Yeah.
Right, because now it goes to the glute med, that is overdoing to go external torques, and now it goes to the lower back. By the way, you're pressing yourself up while you're trying to hinge on the left. So there's a lot of shift this way, and so your lower back does this all the time and starts cramping. Because you're doing this, you're starting to shrug on the right like crazy because that's external torque as well, and then that goes on your neck on the right side.
Yeah.
Could see, but so that pressure like that too would start to hurt the knee as well.
Yeah.
Because the tearing here means that the knee here is misaligned because your entire hip is misaligned.
It puts a lot of weight on the other
weight, or you put the weight unevenly, or everything is not lined up properly. The femur and the tibia is not lined up anymore, which means you got that slight turn like this, which is nothing when you walk, but suddenly when you are at 100% full speed, that slight misalignment is just ruining the tendons and the joint, because at that speed, we're talking under 12 seconds, when you're at 100% speed, the stress on your body is monstrous. There's I forget the name of it, but it's a graph showing that the speed and not the friction, but the stress put on goes exponentially. So the stress on the joint at full speed, slightly misaligned, will always lead to the same result. So you could start with a small injury that starts to mess with the chain and end up with the whole thing going a different way. And then from there, it's like all systems. Is you tweak this here, the butterfly effect, if you want, right? Yeah. Like a car. You want the car to go a bit faster, you put a stronger motor. Yeah, then you wreck the entire car because suddenly you don't realize that as you go faster, the wind capacity of the windshield was never designed for it. So then the windshield starts to go, or like you can't drive the same way, the brakes don't work. All stuff goes like this. So that's why always having a good cyclical versus acyclical movement is the key to not get hurt in the first place.
Yeah. So from a coaching perspective, if you want to teach someone or let someone find that pattern in the squat, for example, how do you explain it? Like, do you say go look for the circle? Because
look for the circle thing. Yeah, that might work. Who knows? Right?
I think it would strike to certain people, but Do you have to know? Oh,
Let me answer. No. That's a good question, and I'll answer. How would I explain it to someone? This is where it gets rough.
because one sub question in that: do you really have to have a really good understanding of internal torque and external torque, and then go into it, or do you start with the circle and then?
That's an excellent question. I don't have a perfect answer, honestly, to give you on that one. I've failed multiple times explaining the cyclical movement. To this day, there's still the problem is people chase position over tension. So what they do is they go, well, if I do external torque, it means my elbows are going to do this, and then my elbows come out, and I'm like. You can have external rotation and still be in internal torque. You can have internal rotation and be in external torque. That's the problem, is that the system is so much more complex than this, that the only way you can make it work is simple, is you find the tension. What is internal torque tension-wise? Right? Then what is external torque tension-wise? And then you're going to go from one feeling to another, one feeling to another, one feeling to another. If you try to force the joint by doing out, in, or stuff like that, you're mimicking. You're not doing. You're imitating, not doing. There's a difference between an imitation and a doing. You might not be doing it the same way I do it, or someone else is doing because of mobility limit. It doesn't matter. What matters is the tension being created. It's tension away from the body, tension toward the body. If you can understand that, then I can teach you cyclical movement. So we can start with simple movements like the squat, like an air squat or stuff like that, or a stiff leg where you go like, that's internal torque, that's external torque. And then you start playing with it. The issue that you will see most of the time is that you had time. You have me all the time correcting you, like, no, don't do this. But if you look, I never overcorrected. I let you deadlift, and I'm like, no, just don't do that one. Try to avoid this one. No, that one, no. But after that, I'm like, no, you're doing fine. Just lift. And then every time you go, oh, and I'm like, right. So you feel that? Great. That's what you're supposed to feel. Oh, okay. And then I let you just feel the movement, and then suddenly you start to feel the stuff. And every time I'm correcting, but you don't know I'm correcting. Yeah. I'm just guiding you through in a very specific pattern. And then you felt it and figured it out and went forward. People don't want to take the time to do that. They want an answer right now as to what the movement is and what does it look like, and let me go in the gym and do it 1,000 times so I can do it that way. And that's just not the way this works. It's constraint versus objective. The problem when I say cyclical is that it gives them an objective, and they think I'm going to have to do this, and so they do that and nothing happens. Yeah. Because you can do the movement 10,000 ways, but it's a tension that matters.
So, yeah, I understand. I don't go really into the answers because I have so many questions that I'm just taking it on. And then. Yeah. So, from a more mental aspect, do you think that you have to have an understanding, a deep understanding from the inside world and the outside world to even understand the difference between internal torque and external torque, and then combine?
Excellent question.
Well, thank you.
Do you? That's an excellent question.
Because if it's that deep, and if it goes that deep, then there needs to be a deep mental understanding.
Does it?
Too. Yeah, or is it also just the physical movement?
Yes,
or can it be separate things, or is it always connected?
But they're not separate. That we're going to go back to embodied cognition. The brain cannot sample the universe without the body. There is no such thing as a simple movement. There is no such thing as an internal one. One cannot exist without the other. They are connected. You cannot do the internal torque
and not have a deep understanding.
And not have, but the understanding might not be with words, but it doesn't matter. Like if you feel a pattern and the pattern is better, where you feel more free, there's less tension, or you're more effective, you do more reps, and right away you go like, oh, this works. So you had a deep understanding of the pattern. Right, so after that, when you get tired or whatever, can you maintain that calm inside or not? Or are you going to lose your mind? That's going to be a different thing. So we're going to start to go into where people are different. Is like that pattern might work at first, but then you hit the fail of the exercise, and going into flight takes you sympathetic, and now you cannot maintain the internal torque anymore because you're not in a cyclical pattern. You will not do a cyclical pattern in flight. There's no way. Not even in fight, because that's too much on the sympathetic side. You could fight it, but most likely you're fighting yourself, so it won't work. So what are the limitations? Like, does that mean to keep the internal torque going as long as I need to? Does that mean that I need to have the strength to not go too much towards sympathetic, or at least not flight? Yes, I think so. Once you're in flight, you will not maintain internal torque. So there's a danger for that. That means if you're in flight while you run, you're screwed. You'll hurt yourself. Is that why you hurt yourself? I don't know.
Well, yeah.
How much of it now is it? Or is it actually there is no, it's the same?
So
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there are so many aspects that can you know. But then, so I think that I also truly feel myself more inside and outside because of the Q training, right? It allows you to be so much more clear and to listen better. So do you think you can only find certain movement patterns or connect to them, if that's the right way of saying it, if you are doing the Q training, if you're on the protocol? Because if you're on a huge amount of carbs and you're going into this, then it's the same. The state is also not the same. Does that mean that you need to have all the principles in line to find certain things, or do you think they can be separate too?
It's a very good question. If you ask me, yeah, I believe that if your state is completely out of whack, like massive amount of carbs, sugar, caffeine, stuff like that, you can only go toward external torque. Like finding the internal torque, I think you'll find no meaning in it. Can you force it physically? Yes. Will it do anything? I don't believe it will. So is it necessary to have a deep understanding, even like intellectual, of that concept in order to get the most out of it? I believe so. Those are excellent questions. It's hard for me to answer outside of giving you my opinion. Do I think the Q training, you cannot find a good cyclical without the Q training? Yeah, I believe so. I believe you need the Q training to find. I didn't have the Q training before, but the idea is the same. I think that by going to flight on some movement, by going past that fail point, you took yourself out of the cyclical pattern. That's why you took yourself out of the cyclical pattern. Not you, just in general.
Yeah. So training that behavior.
I think with the Q training, people will see that the cyclical movements will be far greater, of far greater importance, and meaning and performance will go up in that aspect.
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Because I don't know, maybe it's me, but I did not hear as much about the cyclical movement.
The circle thing.
The circle thing. It's still my second language, you guys. Sometimes I trip over.
I like the circle thing. I think everybody will go like, yeah, we're going to call it the circle thing.
No, but maybe it's because it's a bit older, or I was not as deep into strength and deep into all the stuff. Or is it just not as used as often because no one? It's
a Strongfit thing.
No, but I mean, like, even right now, do you still do people still really use it, or is there some attention brought to it? Because I'm like, whoa.
Right. So some people that are, old school Strongfit know about the cyclical and use it and stuff like that. Is it going to become famous? Because I think that's what your question is. Is it going to spread and everything?
It's not a famous thing in a sense of outside, but I mean, like, is it still something that people use benefit of, and
yes.
Does it get the credit I think it deserves?
Who cares?
Say it like that.
Credit, I don't care. Is it being
credit
used?
From people who actually benefit from it. So credit in the sense of benefit.
We have changed. We have helped people. Yeah. There's no question. Is it being used by the old school Strongfit people? Yeah, it is. But that goes back to the other question: is if you're in the wrong state, you won't be able to use it or get the benefits or whatever. So, like in the world today, it's very rough. Is it going to spread more as a way of doing the stuff? Like, is it going to see the light of day? All that stuff. In today's world, I don't think so. I highly
we
doubt.
talked about that a little bit over
I highly
lunch.
doubt that this world will not allow, but will get an idea that I believe is very profound out, because everything is binary now. You're either a Muslim or a Christian, you're Republican or Democrat, you're black or white, you're man or a woman, I mean, that one actually is blurry, but you have high testosterone or low testosterone, whatever bullshit that is. Because everything is based on a simple truth, which is what allows me to win, to make money. It's that thing. In today's world, there is no benefit to cyclical thing. Of course, there's a massive benefit to people, but there is no benefit for a coach to have it as a system. How are you going to make money off of it? Like, there is no benefit for people to feel better, to move better in a sense, to get hurt less, and that's not where the benefit is. The benefit is in macros, is in selling a program, is in selling that you need to follow exactly. Like, we don't want people to be better. We want them to buy drugs. We want people to be injured. We want people to be feeling shitty. The system needs that, because that's how you sell things. If I can have a movement pattern that allows you to do this, it has in today's world, it has very, very little interest. So that's why I don't think we'll see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just a movement pattern. I believe it goes deeper. Obviously, I'm not the.
Even if it's just a movement pattern, it's very helpful, because if you know a movement pattern, you know a movement. Exactly,
but go explain that to a track coach. That there is that, again, people will go spirituality and discard you, it can't be that simple and discard you, will go like, well, how do I use it, and discard you. I can't, because they'll say, but how do you teach it? Do you turn your foot? I'm like, well, no, it's a tension that the person has to create. But like, how are they going to find out? People can't find their glutes. How do you want me to explain internal torque? I've been hearing this for 5 years. I don't know, internal torque is like, what, 7 years old now? I've been hearing that from day one. Like, how do you want me to teach it? Like, I'm already giving people cues with knees out and chest up and everything. So now, you want me to tell them to turn their knees in? I was like, not internal rotation, internal torque. Oh, well, tension, what does that even mean? It's not sellable. Yeah. The same way as macros are, as like knees out. This is why knees out works so well, because it's easy. You just push your knees out. Oh, problem solved. Except you didn't solve any problems. You only created new ones.
Yeah. No, I think also outside of the selling aspect, it's also the distraction aspect, right? And that goes with the selling, because everyone is so busy buying and selling and buying. But
the fitness world is part of the medical world. It's a fact, right? Because we take care of bodies, we're just at the bottom, which is a shame, because we're not at the bottom, but we are at the bottom. Then there's the physios, the chiropractors, and then the physios, or physios, chiropractors, depending on where you put them, and doctors and everything. So, but we are in that world, and in that world, the business is not healthy. The business is fixing. It's telling people what to do. That's the business. Look at the world right now with the vaccine and everything, like vaccine mandates. Yeah. People are asking literally for the mandate. It's the most insane thing, but we're paying the price for the last 60 years of our behavior. This is what the world is. It's like, tell me what to do. What we are asking for is an authoritarian type. We had nobility before, we had kings. And if you look, as the more we push toward democracy, the more we push toward another form of authoritarian regime, which is what we have now. You're not allowed to think a certain way. Like before, you were not allowed to say it. Long live the king, always, right? Now you can't even think a certain way, which is crazy. So that's a longer conversation. Yeah. But so stuff like the cyclical will not get I don't know about the credit, but will it get the respect it deserves? No, we won't.
And credit, I don't mean people patting you on the back.
Respect.
But with credit, I mean that, for example, it has a lot of credit to me right now because I understand. Yeah. No, also because I understand the movement. So I mean credit in the sense of, does it gonna help people understand the movement better?
Yes.
Or gets it the credit that people go like, whoa, I understand the squat now because of this, because of the circle.
I believe it has.
So in that sense, I meant credit.
Yeah, but I believe it has, and I believe it still does, and I don't think he'll spread as much as he should. Yeah. Not as because it's my idea, but just as a concept, because I am not the first one to to talk about it. I'm the first one that I know who talked about it in respect to how I framed it within exercise. So I think that's what my contribution was to take a concept that has always existed, Taoist, Tai Chi, that concept has always been there. I just framed it in a term of exercises, right? So I pushed it a little bit further into my field. So it is not mine, but will he get the respect he deserves toward that? No, I don't think he will. I don't think it is feasible like that. In the meantime, he has helped a lot of people, and I believe will continue to help. And you see a lot of people from CrossFit, for example, they adopted a lot of that because they saw effectiveness. So this works better, so I'm going to do it. That's one of the greatest contribution I thought CrossFit did as well toward fitness is it working or not?
Yeah.
There's not enough of that in fitness. Is it working? Because if it's working, then we use it.
Yeah.
Good. That fitness or science should also be based on that. Is it working? If yes, then there's something there. Then we move forward. It's not as simple now that we are a bureaucratic society to the fullest. That is not as obvious as it should be. So in that sense, I think a lot of CrossFit people, Strongfit people, have used it to great results. I don't think they understand how deep it goes or how much it should be perfected.
Yeah.
It's like all the Sangoku forms, they should be perfected.
Yeah, because
that's my geek talk. But
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly.
Because
Sangoku, Vegeta, God of Destruction.
Yeah, but also a lot of things are circle based. I mean, like when you go into more spiritual things, right? A lot of things are circle based or circle drawings or things or.
I will.
Yeah. Even Yaya would love to be walked around in circles as a baby, no?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, when I was working, but it's the.
There's something with the circle.
That's the roundness of Tai Chi. Like this has. There is at the very least a pattern there.
Yeah.
How far does it go? Who knows?
So I have one more question. Mm-hmm. I think we already run. Oh, we're running 42 minutes, so we're quite long.
It's a good podcast.
So, can you program completely off of the circle?
I did.
Okay. That's a short answer. And what did you notice with training completely based on the circle?
That it worked. I mean, that was about 2 years of my life.
You just trained in the circle for 2 years?
Mm-hmm. Only internal torque, only external torque, mixing it. So I had the entire template where I would start in internal torque, finish in external torque, morning versus afternoon. Yeah, that was.
That's so cool. Why are you laughing?
Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because of your face.
Can you program in with the torque chains? I'm like
no, not with the torque chains, but just completely
cyclical versus acyclical. Yes,
and
you can program based on that.
Did you? What did you notice in the increase of?
This has been the last week.
No,
that's why I'm laughing.
I mean, I'm just laughing at your face.
Like that cycle thing, it works. I'm like, wow, yeah.
What did you notice? I mean, strength-wise, or did you mostly felt the calm in the strength?
Well, both. I found ways to eliminate soreness completely by playing external torque and finishing internal torque a specific way. I brought tremendous calmness, sometimes too much, crashed myself. I came out with what is called a Super Saiyan workout by going external torque in an imam form, blah, 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 where I just went insane for like 2.5 hours. Didn't sleep for 3 days.
Really?
Yeah, external torque. I just got into something. And then I was doing it through external torque movements. It was sumo deadlift off of blocks into ET rows, into push presses just off the chest. And then I rotated that on the minute more or less with a short time rest. But then I got into a weird, almost like drug phase. I wouldn't know, but I'm guessing. And then I just lost it, and then I kind of opened my eyes 2.5 hours later, going like, I should stop training now. I just couldn't stop. It was crazy. I went like this, and
but what came in your head? What were you thinking? What were you feeling your own?
I wasn't. It was just an explosion of for like 2 hours straight. I didn't sleep for 2 days. It was crazy. I've never been that high.
So how did you feel even the night and the day after and everything? Just completely high on life?
Like exhausted, but not being able to calm down. Like every time I do something, it's like, imagine you had 17 shots of espressos. I felt like that for 3 days. It was crazy. We call it the Super Saiyan workout. I can trigger it. Like I've done it with people. If you don't make it, you crash really bad. But I had like with Sarah and everything, she got into a zone and I had that, so it's an imam, like 3 exercises like that. I had people going way past 30 minutes. They just got in the zone and they could have kept on going as long as they wanted.
So if we're gonna compete, can we then do that as a warm-up thing where you would use it like that and then you would just completely insane, or?
Probably, I don't know how to do it yet.
That could
like, yeah, but you don't understand.
No, I don't understand.
Like,
that's why we're making this podcast.
That training session was, and I repeated after. It was 2 hours. It was 2 hours plus. Like it was insane. Like but I didn't sleep for 3 days. I don't know how to control it. I don't know how to do it in a way that you just train for an hour and not crash for 3 days. Like, like I'm guessing that's what ecstasy is. Like, you know, like, and then you just drain your brain and it takes you 3 days to recover.
Yeah.
That's how it felt like. Like I was so high for 2 hours. Like the rest of the day I was like this. Like I call it Super Saiyan. I've never been that high. But then I just couldn't sleep. Could not sleep. But it was an awesome feeling. You could get addicted to that so fast.
So when you crashed yourself, you were doing just internal torque exercises?
That I did, yeah. So I was doing just internal torque exercises and it was super calming at first, but eventually it's too calm.
So how did you feel then? Almost
too
into
calm.
a depressed state?
Yeah,
or?
almost, yeah. Not reactive enough, not too calm.
Yeah.
Like you need, come on, like you need to, so heavy weights feel, but they don't feel heavy, you just, like your baseline is too low after a while.
And how long did that last? Also 3 days?
No, because I did that for like 2-3 weeks. And so to bring myself out of it, I needed like 2-3 good training sessions in external torque, but it took a while. But after that, because I tried every combination, what was the most interesting to me was the soreness from ET, like complete stop of soreness and full recovery out of combining ET and IT a certain way. And then like I was fully recovered to the point where, but I don't know if that's going to impede muscle growth or not. Mm-hmm. That brings the question is, do you need the soreness for muscle growth? People will go like, soreness is just micro tear of the muscle. That's not true. It has nothing to do with that. You can have micro tear of the soreness and not feel pain. The pain comes from a squeezing of, there's an article that I posted, a paper that was very interesting on this, where it's more a compression that has to do with the nervous system. Maybe, long story short.
Yeah. You made a podcast on
the
that.
soreness, yeah. Good job. The soreness is a soreness is a nervous system thing. So I calmed down the nervous system so much that I didn't react. If it doesn't react and doesn't create the soreness, does that mean it's not triggering the muscle growth? Because the hormonal response is not there. I don't know. But imagine doing all that work and then you recover so much that you do not trigger the muscle growth because you don't trigger the hormonal response. I don't know. Be great to work skill. I don't know. I have to try. I don't know.
Maybe we could try that on like, for example,
well, we both as a weight class, so it's probably be good. If you want tomorrow, we can start. I still know how I did it. So.
With what? Start with.
So we start with the shoulder, which means we'll do half the workout in ET. So we'll do 3 exercises in ET, and we'll do probably 2 in IT. Same muscles, but in internal torque in order to decompress the muscle.
But then we could even do like days where we like do workouts where we push but we don't get sore, and days where we get sore, right?
Right, but that's not the same because we're going to do the exact same volume of work. We're just going to take away the soreness through the internal torque.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But
the volume is the same.
Yeah.
Right. So, right. I don't know. That those are questions I have for myself. But would you trigger muscle growth the same without the soreness? Because the nervous system doesn't. Did we trick it into not responding, or did we just better recovery? Is it interesting to better recovery because then we can do more work? It's better for skill. Yeah, but are you still learning as fast as you can if there is no response from the nervous system, or the nervous system response is not as intense. After all, that's how we learn. We learn through intensity of emotion. So do I need the soreness to trigger muscle growth?
But
I don't know.
the nervous system is basically your prediction versus observation.
No,
not
the nervous system is part, the prediction versus observation is everything. That's how life is.
yeah.
The nervous system is a physical representation, one of the physical representation of that concept. That concept is it's a long conversation, is a deep concept that goes to what is life. A physical representation of that concept, right, is the nervous system. A nervous system is just there to allow us to sample the world.
But if then the prediction and the observation match, is that what you do with the sacral movement? Is that you're constantly matching it, and that's why you don't get sore?
Or is it a physiological thing? Because the soreness comes out of that compression into the muscle. Do we decompress through the internal torque? So is that less of a shock into the muscle? That diminished shock might be why we take away the soreness, because it's not
yeah, you don't freak out the system as much.
Right, exactly.
But you're also balancing it constantly, right?
Right, but do you need a freak out to grow? I don't know.
Well, let's end the podcast with that question.
I don't know.
Because how long are we in? We're 15 minutes in. So
I think supposed to be a 10, 15 minutes.
We're going like, let's do it right now, because we're already talking, and we're like, let's put the camera on and finish the conversation here. And we were supposed to do 10 minutes, and now it's 15 minutes.
Welcome to my life. See, that's why the podcast always end up the way they do.
Yeah.
Because if you want to if you ask the right questions, you go to very interesting places. But so, to answer your last question, yes, there are programs based on the cyclical versus acyclical.
Well.
Anyway, so there'll be an episode 3 coming if we ever get to your questions.
Yeah, exactly. If we ever get to your questions, because I have a lot.
So we might do a lot of those first. Yeah, let's be honest. No. You come second. Sorry.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your answers. And maybe for next one we do the stickers.
Oh, you have questions? Bring them on.
Yeah.
That makes for good conversations.
It makes for good conversations.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.